Hey, beautiful and brilliant mamas. Welcome back to For Black Mompreneurs, a podcast where we hold space for Black women who are mothers and entrepreneurs, unapologetically chasing purpose and prosperity while raising some awesome children. I'm your host, Femi Lewis. In last week's episode, we discussed community building and how that's so significant in our lives as entrepreneurs. And today, we're going to talk about something that is related to community building, but is a little bit different. And we're going to talk about it as something that can transform your business trajectory. And that is networking. And not just networking for the sake of networking, it's networking with the right mindset around it. So I know what you're thinking, I barely have time to work on my business and get my kids fed and get dressed, let alone find a networking event to go to. Or maybe you're a little like me, you're an introvert more than you're an extrovert, and you're like, I hate those awkward conversations that happen in networking spaces where everyone's just trying to sell to each other or find out what they do, but not really create any kind of synergy. So trust me, I get it. I've been there and I'm there right now. And I think I'll always be there. That's the life of an entrepreneur. But so if you're an introvert like me, a busy mother like me, and, networking might feel a little uncomfortable, know that it gets easier. It's like any other skill that you have as an entrepreneur, the more that you practice networking, the more natural it will become. But here's what I really want you to center about networking. It's really not just about collecting business cards or making small talk with other people who have businesses. It's really about shifting your mindset and approach to networking strategically so that it can become one of the most powerful tools in your toolkit as an entrepreneur. So let's have a good talk. Let's talk about the idea of networking, how we have to consider networking and the type of mindset that we need to really enter those spaces. What should be our expectations from networking? And then I'll leave you with some tips of what to do before, during, and after that will hopefully make this process easier. So I want you to grab your coffee, your tea, your green juice, or if it's after 5 o'clock, a glass of wine, and I want to dive in. So let's start with some foundational ideas about networking and what it really is. I'm not talking about that surface level definition you hear everywhere about like, oh, go to this networking event or go to this mastermind group. Networking is an intentional process, all right? So it's an intentional process of building mutually beneficial relationships that create value for your business and for everyone that's involved. So it's not just about you, it's about the other person as well. And that's important to understand. The network is about giving and receiving in equal measure. It's not about taking something and it's not about giving. It's about giving and receiving in equal measure. So I want you to think about it like this. Networking is planting seeds in a garden. You're not going to harvest anything immediately, but with the right care, attention, and time, those seeds will grow into something that nourishes everyone that's involved. So I want you to think about like how networking might be a little different than community building, because this is like a murky water and sometimes people can get confused in terms of defining those two groups. So last week we talked about community building, and I'll just go back over that today. And it's really about creating a sense of belonging and a shared identity. It's about gathering people who have a vested interest in similar values and having them be together and supporting each other in that way. So you can think about, we talked about last week creating a mastermind group for moms, or if there's a local business moms group, or if there is a collective of business owners that you meet with occasionally to do a check-in, or even a Black mompreneur Facebook group. Those are examples of community building. Our intention isn't necessarily about doing business and giving and receiving. They're built on connection, support, and shared understanding. Networking is strategic. It's about identifying specific people, specific entrepreneurs or specific clients who can help you achieve particular goals, and figuring out how you can also add value to their initiative. So networking isn't necessarily better or worse than community. It's just different. Here's the beautiful thing. The best networking happens when you bring that community mindset to it, because community mindset always puts value first and about giving and receiving. And so when you approach networking with genuine care for others, and when you're authentic about who you are and what you bring to the table, that's when the magic will always happen. And I think, as a Black mompreneur, talking to other Black mompreneurs, this distinction is especially important because we need both. We need our communities for support, understanding, and also solidarity. And we need our networks for opportunities, resources, and business growth. So now that we've established the distinction between community building and network, I'm ready to talk about the mindset shift that changes everything when you think about networking. Because here's what I've learned. Your mindset going into networking determines your results all the time. So the first thing I want you to do is shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. So when we're thinking in terms of scarcity, we might say something like, there's not enough opportunity for everyone, or if she wins, I'll lose. That's really negative thinking. But if you think in terms of abundance, when you think about networking, you can say there's room for all of us to succeed. And you can also say her success can actually help create opportunities for me. So as Black mompreneurs, we have the power to undo these old thought processes that say that we need to fight for a seat at the table, because we don't. Instead, we can find seats at tables that serve us and suit us, allowing us to share our value and learn from others. And of course, and probably most important, we can build our own tables and we can expand the existing ones. The next thing I want you to do is make sure that your mindset is focused on what you can give in terms of value and in terms of who you are. And I'm not saying give away your services or your products for free. I'm saying instead of walking into every networking opportunity thinking, what can I get from this? Start thinking, what can I give? And it might sound a little counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful. See, when you enter spaces thinking like that, then you're thinking about how you can share your value and how you can share your expertise versus who's going to be my next client. And when you lead with value, people are going to remember you. When you're the person who makes introductions or shares resources or offers help without being asked, you are becoming someone people feel that they want to stay connected with. So I'll give you a great example of this. A few months ago, I met Jody. She's a woman who does just that. She builds networks so that she can share resources and be a connector to others. And I went to one of her networking events. It was a Friday after work networking event. And I've kind of avoided those because I don't have a traditional job. So I'm like, oh, what am I going to an after work networking event? But I went anyway, right? Because it was at a hair salon and every attendee got like a free curl styling appointment or blowout. We were encouraged to tip, but along with that, there was a makeup artist there doing light makeup. And then we got a 10-minute photography session. All along the way, there's like wine and there's good snacks. Femi was in heaven, and women were making great connections with each other, all because Jody cultivated enough relationships to place us all in this space, right? So think about this. Now I have a new hairstylist. I have a makeup artist I can call. I've met other women from other walks of life who work in the same industry as I do or something adjacent, and those became meaningful connections. So I want you to embrace also the long-term game. Networking isn't a quick fix. You don't go in like, oh, I need this client so I can get this money so I can pay this bill. It's not about going to one event and landing those 3 new clients, right? It's about building relationships over time, right? And create opportunities you never could have seen coming. So after that event, somebody reached out to me and was like, I wanted to invite you to this event that's coming up. And I remember going and I remember feeling like, wow, I only got into the space because of Jody. visibility in this other event. And I remember when I first started networking, I would go to events and I used to feel really defeated if I didn't get immediate results. But, in growth, you begin to understand that some of the best opportunities came from connections that I made years ago, people that I stayed in touch with, and people who remembered me when the right opportunity came about. And so the next thing I want us to do, and this is really crucial, sometimes as mothers, especially for those of us who have taken like a professional pause, we kind of get caught up in, oh, these are my kids and this is kind of what I do or I used to do. But I want us to own our expertise. You have valuable knowledge and experience, even if you're just starting out in your business, because every day you are solving problems, you are learning lessons, you're developing skills, and you're teaching those skills to your children, and you've taught them to other people professionally. So I don't want you to diminish anything that you have learned or anything that you've experienced, because that makes you so much more powerful. Sometimes we think we need to be further along in our journey to have something valuable to offer, and it's just not true. We all have perspective, and our insight and our perspective as Black women, as Black mothers, as someone balancing business and family, and as someone who's overcome challenges, that's expertise at work. And the last thing I want you to do is I want you to approach networking with curiosity and not necessarily judgment. Every person you meet has a story and has expertise and has connections. Your job is to show up authentically and find people that are genuinely interested in learning from and about, not to quickly categorize them into useful or not useful. So now that we've talked about the mindset that we need to have, the ways that we need to show up positively to make networking worthwhile, I want us to talk about where we are networking, because there's also a strategy in that. Networking is all about strategy. And so we have to think about how we're navigating between Black spaces and mainstream networking events. So our Black networking spaces are really invaluable. They're where we can show up as our full selves without having to feel like we need to code switch, or we need to watch what we say, or we need to question how others feel about us. They're where we understand each other's challenges intimately, and they're where we can build those deep, authentic relationships with each other. So for instance, organizations led by Black women, for Black women, such as Black Women Talk Tech, or local Black business organizations like local Black Chamber of Commerce, those are going to be gold mines for meaningful relationships and meaningful connections. And so, in Black spaces, we can talk about those unique challenges we face, from accessing capital to dealing with microaggressions, to balancing cultural expectations with business goals. And we can share strategies that work specifically for our community. But we also need to show up in mainstream spaces. This is where a lot of opportunities, resources, and decision makers are. And we can't afford to exclude ourselves from these spaces. The key is showing up authentically while being strategic. You don't have to dim your light or hide who you are, but you need to be prepared and educate and advocate. And sometimes, being the only Black woman in the room, you just have to expect that. So I honestly don't go to a ton of networking events, but I do manage networking from a really balanced approach. I have Black networking organizations that I'm a part of, and I network often with them. And then I have another probably 40% in spaces where we're not the majority, but I'm expanding my reach. And that's what you should be focused on, where you feel comfortable and understood, and also in spaces where you're expanding your reach and influence. So for instance, I have gone to NYC or BNYC events focused on networking, but I've also attended a ton of WordCamp events so that I can stretch. And the key is to always use the strength you gain from Black spaces to fuel your confidence in mainstream spaces. The connections you make in Black spaces often become your support system and referral network. And as your business continues to grow, there's no reason you can't connect your two worlds. So you can make connections, right, between your Black network and your mainstream network. The power in making that bridge is, this is how we expand opportunities for everyone. I want you to remember, you're just not networking for yourself, you're opening doors for other Black women and other entrepreneurs who will come after you. And now that we've discussed where to network, it is time to discuss our expectations of networking. Now, I know what you're thinking, Femi, where are those tips? And trust me, sis, I've got the tips. I just want to make sure that we establish some expectations of networking, because there is where most of us get discouraged in the networking process. So the first expectation that I want you to understand or set for yourself is that networking is a long-term investment. It's not a short game. It's a long game. So don't expect immediate results. The person you meet at a networking event might refer you your biggest client 2 years from now after they've gotten to know you, or it might not ever bear any fruit. Just be patient with the process and plant seeds in lots of spaces. And that leads me back to kind of what I just said, that not every connection will lead to business. Most connections won't necessarily turn into clients or collaborators. And I want you to be all right with that. Some will become mentors. Some will become friends. Some will become your biggest cheerleaders or your biggest haters. And even more will be, entrepreneurs that you met at a networking event and you might see here or there, but you don't really ever create a relationship. And that's okay. Each and every one of these groups have a value. The third expectation that I want you to set is focusing on quality over quantity. So you might meet 50 people, but that doesn't mean that all 50 will be meaningful to your business. And it doesn't mean you'll be valuable to them either. I want you to focus on building meaningful relationships with the right people. So you might meet 50 people and exchange 50 business cards, but there might be 3 that are really up your alley. So focus on those 3 that are really meaningful. Another thing I want you to come to expect is that you might face some unique challenges because of who you are. We are living in an interesting time. And let's be real, you might be the only Black woman in that room. And sometimes people will make assumptions about you or your business or what you have to offer. And maybe sometimes you'll have to work a little harder to be heard. This is part of the journey, but it doesn't mean that you give up. It means that you find the right spaces to be in. Also understand that your network is going to evolve. The people in your network today might not be the same people in your network 5 years from now. And that's totally fine, because as you grow and change, your network should too. Okay, so now that we've talked about where to network and the expectations that you have or what you should expect, I want us to get kind of practical. So here are some tips for networking effectively. And I'm breaking these up into before, during, and after the networking event so that you can enter these spaces feeling really confident in your value and leave ready to build connections with others. So before the event, I want you to think about how you can make the most of your time and be prepared so that you feel great walking in the room. I always say choose something really simple to wear, nothing too complicated, and just go in there with the intention of talking about yourself, right? So the first thing I want you to do is be strategic with your time before this event. We know our time is really precious and we can't attend every single networking event or coffee meeting. So I want you to research networking events, and I want you to make choices to attend those that are going to align with your goals and where your ideal clients or collaborators are likely to be. And I want you to ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve right now? Am I looking for clients? Am I looking for partners? Am I looking for a mentor or an investor? See, different goals will require different networking approaches. And if you have clear intentions, then that will help you stay focused. Otherwise, you're just attending an event and passing out, and you're just kind of hoping, wishing, and praying that you create a synergy with someone there. That becomes a waste of your time, and that's how you kind of get discouraged with networking when you're not intentional. The next thing I want you to do is plan it out. As mothers, we have to think about so many things in advance, but get those things plotted out, right? So think about the childcare. Who are the kids going to stay with? Think about your transportation. Think about when you're going to return and how you're going to return. I don't want you to let these details stress you out, so it's best to plan them out before the day of the event. And think about your time there. What do you need? Make sure that you've got business cards. Also, make sure that you've got a digital business card, because some people don't like exchanging actual printed cards right now because it just creates a lot of paper and clutter that is not necessary. And then finally, I want you to rehearse your introduction. So you have have a clear way of sharing who you are that goes beyond your business card. And think about it as like a value statement, because I always talk about value. So it should communicate who you are and what you do and the value you bring, all in about 30 seconds. So instead of saying, I'm a marketing strategist, you could say something like, I support service-based entrepreneurs, tell their stories in a way that attract their ideal clients and build lasting relationships. That is an intro that is going to garner questions. So, okay, now you're in the room. You've got your digital business card. You've got a couple printed out for us old school people that like a business card. You've practiced that intro, and now you're here. It's time for some action. If you're an early bird, get there early. Sometimes I'm a bit of an introvert, and when I feel like I'm super early, it makes me fidgety. But, there is power in arriving early, because the beginning of the event is often when people feel most open to conversations, and you will have more opportunities to connect with the organizers and the speakers, maybe, if there are speakers. So I want you to be present. I know that sometimes, like, when we're in new spaces, the first thing we want to do is like pull out our phone and start scrolling so that we can seem busy and unaffected by the fact that we might be a little nervous to be in the space. But I want you to put that phone away. Only have it ready for your digital business card. And I want you to focus on the conversations that you're having, because people can tell when you're distracted or looking over their shoulder for someone better to talk to. And I want you to be yourself. I don't want you trying to be someone you're not, because people can sense authenticity and they can sense phoniness. The authenticity, you being you, is what creates real connection. And your personality and your perspective, along with your experiences, is also going to create connections. Those are assets. Those are not things you should hide. And if you feel that you need to hide who you are to be in a networking space, that's not the networking space for you. So what I also want you to do while you're at this event is I want you to be listening intently to the people that you speak to, because great listeners are great networkers, and great listeners ask great questions. So you want to have conversations with people, right? So I want you to have some go-to questions ready that will help you understand what someone does and what challenges they're facing and how you might be able to help. And you might need to finesse this as time goes on, right? And think about what questions feel natural for you to ask people. So something like, what's the most exciting project you're working on right now? Or what's the biggest challenge you're facing? Or what resources have been most helpful to you lately? All great questions to ask when you're getting to know someone. And this is also important, and we kind of touched on it before in the expectation section where we talked about quality over quantity. I don't want you to be afraid to move on. If you're in a conversation, it's not going well, or you feel like you've kind of finalized your conversation with someone, it's okay to excuse yourself politely, not rudely, and move on to someone else, or just go get a sip of water and recalibrate. Remember, I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. You don't need to know all 50 people in a room. If you meet about 10, and then you focus on whittling it down to 3 to 5 other meaningful conversations, that's much greater and more powerful than having a stack of business cards or a bunch of new followers that don't really care about you. So the event's over, you go home, and I'm sure you've got lots of thoughts running through your head. So the first thing I want you to do is reflect on the event. How did you feel about it? The organizers, who did you connect with and why? Do you need to keep this organization in your rotation or not? If yes, think of how it will help your business grow. If not, consider your intention and goals and target audience. It's all right if it's not a fit. Remember that every experience in business is a lesson for you to learn from. So the next thing I want you to do is follow up in a meaningful way. And so this is where most people, myself included, can drop the ball. And that's with the follow-up. So within 48 hours of meeting someone, I think it's important to send a really personalized message. Reference something that you remember from your conversation, share a resource with them, or make some sort of introduction if you feel comfortable. I don't think that it's always appropriate to make introductions, especially between business owners, because you don't know this person well enough to vouch for them. But if it's some sort of synergy and you feel like, you know what, this might be a person that so-and-so can use and you can pass someone in that way. I don't want you to just send out a generic, nice to meet you message. Make it personal and valuable and invite them to a coffee chat or a discovery call. In the past, I have also created like a follow-up email template that I easily just fill in with the information and shoot it out, and it makes it so much easier. And remember, it's always about working smart, not hard. So if you, just the same way that you rehearse your intro and you think about the questions that you think are important, creating that template early will stop the overwhelm of creating all of these follow-up emails. And then you can leverage your social media, right? So your networking doesn't end when you leave the event. You can connect with people on LinkedIn. If you took a picture with them or something, you can put it on your social media platform, whatever makes sense for your business, and talk about why you were excited to be in this space or where you learned. I want you to connect with people once you become their followers on those sites, sharing their content, making meaningful comments, and staying visible. So, networking isn't just about collecting the business cards or making small talk. We've already established that, right? So it's really about building relationships that create mutual value, opportunities, and growth. It's about showing up authentically, giving of yourself, and playing the long game. Remember, you have something valuable to offer. Your perspective, your expertise, and your story. Those are all assets, and don't let anyone, including yourself, convince you otherwise. I want you to start small. This is your homework for the week. I want you to start small. I want you to choose one networking event to attend this month, and I want you to prepare intentionally for that event so that you can show up as your authentic self, follow up meaningfully, and I want you to then watch how your network becomes one of your most valuable business assets. You've got this. I'm rooting for you. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and keep inspiring. I'll be here next week talking more about ways that we can build and grow ourselves so that we can build and grow our communities and our business. I'm Femi Lewis. This is For Black Mompreneurs. Thank you.